Okay. So this is Van Buren Elementary, and they are going to present about their PBIS framework, including their Tier 2 framework that has lots of interesting additions to it that we don't always see. So go ahead.
All right. Can you guys see that screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So we pretty much shaved it down to the bones of what we're doing at Tier 2 and Tier 3 now, just not knowing where everyone else is in their implementation process. But if there's anything that anyone's curious about that we don't address today, you can always email one of us and we're happy to share what we've got or anything like that. So just real quickly, who are we? I'm Sherry May. I'm the school counselor here.
I'm Mike Newcomer. I'm the elementary principal.
And I'm Shanda Still. I run our reset room here at the elementary.
All right. So that's kind of, to be perfectly honest, Shanda is the heart of our reset room of our tier, which is a huge part of our Tier 2. I don't know how we would do PBIS or have Tier 2 and 3 supports if it wasn't for her. She's a really vital piece. And luckily we were able to have her just devoted to manning and staffing the reset room so that we don't have to ever worry about that not being an available thing. So we're pretty fortunate to have that. I think I shared the presentation with you, right, Tammy? So she can share it out with you. A lot of our stuff is at this bit.ly, but I will tell you that some of it may not be yet because after COVID and having 57 different Google folders holding all these different things, I can't promise that it's all where it should be, but I can get it to you. Okay. So 2016 is when we started, and our original expectations when we started all of this with Tammy was be respectful, be responsible, be safe, be a Black Knight. And up until the start of this school year, we have gone with those expectations, and that's been what our building which is K through 5 has gone off of. However, last year, after getting a new superintendent, we were looking at as a district what the traits are of a Black Knight, and based off of a lot of different survey info and input, it ended up to make it less confusing, we changed our expectations to match our district traits. So now it's be respectful, be responsible, and be resilient. We were a little worried about that at first, just that that's a big word for our K and 1, but we were able to find a pretty good little presentation to do at the beginning of the year that seems to help it really stick to the kids, the idea of, if you're going to bounce like a ball or splat like an egg, and that they seem to really get that. Plus they got to smash eggs on the kickoff assembly, so that kind of helped cement it, that's for sure. So a little bit about building our Tier 2 and our Tier 3 supports. So the first 2 years of our PBIS, we were pretty much all just focused on implementation and practices at the universal level, just getting our lesson plans put in place and our videos for teaching and all of those kind of things. And then when we got up to Year 3, we started putting a little more concretely some of our Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports, starting out with making a check-in, check-out system kind of personalized to our school. I don't think anything we 100% made from our own. I mean, because there are so many great things out there, why reinvent the wheel? I think this manual that we made was based off of something I found on Teachers Pay Teachers, and then just aligned it to fit with what our thresholds were going to be for things and how we wanted it all to lay out. So yeah, that was kind of our start with check-in, check-out. That year we had trained specialist teachers, specialists, and some things like that to be coaches. At this point, for I think just about all of our kids, Shanda is our coach for all of our kids doing check-in, check-out. So depending on the day and the time, either they go down to her or she goes and meets them at the classroom, just depending on the kiddo's schedule. So we kind of started with it that year, our basic DPR here. So in year 4, we started doing some revamping. We introduced our individualized check-in, check-out, which rather than just being the 3 things, respectful, responsible, and resilient, we moved to specifically what that looked like for each kiddo, just kind of digging in a little deeper with what their specific targeted areas are. And then along with that, we added a new kind of spin to the acknowledgement piece, where we started doing a time bank. The picture here you see in the middle, each day that the kiddo would meet their goal, they would get 3 minutes in their time bank, and then they would be able to cash those minutes in for some of the types of things that they have on here. A lot of kids choose to save them up. So then we decided that for some of our kids, we really wanted to try to start implementing that restorative piece to it. So we added to our time bank also a healing bank. So on days that our students would not meet their goals, if we kind of talked about how a lot of the time, even if you weren't physically harming someone, you're stealing class time from your teacher and from your classmates, and that we have to find a way to make up for that time that you took away because they are missing instruction time. The teacher now has to, make up for that time. So we started making, basically the expectation was that you had to serve or like do some kind of work. It usually involved like helping clean up a classroom or writing an apology or having a restorative conversation, something like that. And once they've zeroed that out, then they can do their reward point. So just like PBIS says, we never take anything away, but sometimes they have to do something on the restorative end before they can get their acknowledgements. Does that make sense?
What did you call that again?
We call this our the healing bank, or our time bank. Depending on the kiddo and their needs, some have a healing bank, some don't, because some kids, the only one they're really harming is themselves with their choices. So it just depends on the need.
So they don't get, the healing bank is its own separate thing of minutes that you accumulate of things that have gone wrong.
Right.
And
Basically,
so
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So you have to get rid of those minutes by doing some sort of healing before you can start utilizing the minutes in your time bank.
Right. Yeah. So each day, basically the 3 minutes is either going in your time bank for your different experiences or in your healing bank.
Okay, so that you don't ever allow it to happen that they could subtract stuff out of the time bank from the healing bank. They can't subtract minutes because
Nope.
that will get you into that trap of losing things. Yeah, okay.
Nope.
Okay,
If we've caused harm, we need to correct that harm, period. It's kind of how we
Right.
look at it.
You can't negotiate it out.
Nope.
That's cool. I like that. Thanks.
Sometimes we've had, like we have a second grader who really wanted to use his minutes for something one day, and he was upset when he realized he still had 3 minutes or 5 minutes in his healing bank. But we said, hey, listen, if you sit down and talk with us, we can figure out a way for us to do both. It's just that the healing part has to come first. It's not that both can't happen today. It's just, we have to correct right the wrong before we get, the acknowledgement part is kind of how we look at it. Any other questions on that? Okay. So for year 4 implementation was also when we started having our reset room. We I think one of my favorite finds for it is the desk, because it's an IKEA desk that we painted, but it folds up into the wall in case you need that space. And kids, in the third picture, you'll see the different bins. Kids that have regular scheduled breaks, they have their own bin where the things that they're working on are stored. Sadly, that's a beautiful picture of our teepee. It's currently not looking quite as beautiful due to the explosion of a stress ball that like spewed slime all over the entire room. But it will, yeah, but we will get, yes, it's in the process of getting put back as it was. It's a really small space. It's not anything huge. It does have a crash pad, and there is a small like exercise trampoline in the corner. But this is kind of our space. If you're interested in seeing more, I'm sure I can have someone walk a laptop or something or their phone down to kind of show more of that to anybody. I guess I would prefer, first of all, to kind of tell a little bit more about the hows and whys and whats of our reset room. So our reset room was modeled after materials from a trauma-informed behavior specialist by the name of Jody Grove. She's out of Walla Walla, Washington. To be honest, I'm not sure who found her first. However, we kind of, all of us that were on the PBIS team passed around her information. Two of the resources that we used by her, one was called Setting Up a Calm Room at Your School, and then the other one was Everything You Want to Know About Setting Up and Running an Effective Calm Room. So those were the two main resources that we used that really kind of helped us think about what we wanted our space to look like and to be. These, our guidelines for ours are pretty much straight from Jody's suggestions, just the idea that it's a space to provide calming activities to help students regulate their emotions and a return to the classroom ready to learn. We do schedule proactive breaks. We felt it was really necessary to have that space separate from the office area. Like if a student comes down to the reset room, that doesn't mean that they're getting out of any kind of a consequence. It just means that we want to make sure that they're regulated before they try to have that conversation about what went wrong. So it's not an alternative to the office, it's just a separate space. It's a great support for students, for teachers of students with behavior plans or goals. And it's also a great space where we can practice and reinforce different skills taught in small SEL groups that I provide. So it's kind of a chance to reinforce some of that. Like one example of that would be kiddos that maybe have trouble at recess with getting a little too aggressive or playing fairly. They'll stop in and see Shanda for 2 or 3 minutes before recess and just kind of run through scenarios. Okay, so if this happens, what are you going to do? How are you going to respond? Just kind of things like that, so that's right fresh in their brain before they go outside. Any questions so far on any of that? Okay. One of the biggest things, we didn't have too much trouble here, but I know at some schools, it could be as understanding that it's truly not a reward, that it's truly based off of needs, that there is a de-escalation process. The students coached through the process, and once they're regulated, then we do have conversations and teaching and problem solving. And then the student returns to class, and then another really important piece always is once the student is regulated, that they are welcomed back into class by the teacher. It doesn't have to be some big thing, but just an acknowledgement, hey, you're back, awesome, let's get going back to what we were. In addition to the de-escalation, we also have proactive breaks for kids, aka brain breaks. And those are usually just a 10-minute activity of choice. And simultaneously, there might be review and reinforcement of self-regulation strategies or expectations that are kind of happening at the same time too. So you have to just sit down and kind of decide what your transition process is going to be. Are kids allowed to walk down by themselves? Do they have to be escorted? Is there, what the protocol is for that? At our school, all of our classrooms do have like a cool down spot or a calm corner in their room. So our expectation is if they're not interrupting the learning of others or causing any kind of safety concern, we give them between 6 and 10 minutes to try to self-regulate within the classroom and get back on track. But if it goes beyond that mark, we know that they're going to need some kind of adult support to be able to be back ready to learn. The relationship between Shanda and our classroom teachers are so important, just to figure out like how to get them back into the classroom with the least amount of disturbance as possible and things like that. So it's definitely a collaborative thing. Just some things that it's not used for discipline or behavioral referrals. It's not a timeout room. It's not a playroom. It's not a place we don't allow any kind of catch up or completion of classwork. It's not an escape. It's not a matter of if students are going to do that work. It's just a matter of when, and they will still be accountable for some of that work, It's not a reward. It's not a place just to get treats and prizes. Any questions about any of that, kind of how we have it set up? Or
I would love to hear maybe later about, because I know this is an elementary, but I don't know if this with your colleagues at the middle school or the high school, if they're practicing this or not. I would love to hear about the place to escape from classwork without having to be accountable for the work. Like, what does that look like? Come back
at
to
the
that.
high school, middle school level?
Or even at the elementary.
Even at the elementary. I guess in our building, we're fortunate enough that we have an intervention time built into our schedule where that work could be completed. So I guess
Is
it
that
would
like
just
your
depend.
core plus time? Is that like similar?
Yeah, like an IE, like an intervention.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's kind of our how we're able to still do it. I just wanted to share with you a few of the what I would say are some of the most important pieces that we have for documenting and everything. This reset room log is what Shanda uses every day just to document who comes down. And it's got a whole color coding system to it that she uses. The middle brain break card are those kids that have proactive scheduled breaks. The teacher gets these so that they know when they go. And then our kiddos, when it's more of a situational thing, they can ask for breaks, and we have break cards for that situation as well. And then something that we did start doing, and Tammy maybe will tell us this that we shouldn't do this and it's wrong, but we couldn't figure out a better way to do it. We do document unscheduled breaks at the reset room as minors, because even though it's not a minor behavior, it's information telling us that maybe this student needs something more than just a reactive break. And once we see that they've been to the reset room, 2 or 3 times within a certain amount of time, it's like, okay, we need some kind of support rather than just these reactive breaks. So that's what we use minors for in Swiss. Tammy, is that bad?
No, it's not bad at all. I think it's a great documentation process. Just as long as that's all you're using it for is documentation. I wouldn't count it in your referral count.
No, we
anything like
don't.
that. But yeah, I think that's a great way to document that. I know your staff is absolutely fabulous, but can you talk a little bit how you help the adults in the building see what the uses of the reset room were meant to be, instead of just send them to timeout, send them, they're help us understand how you trained your staff to understand who needs to go to the reset room, please.
I do think it was beneficial here with having 2 full years of our tier 1 stuff really being in place, and I think it becomes more apparent to teachers that those kids that isn't quite enough. But I think there are some you're never going to convince, because if they walk by that room and they see them with Legos in front of them, that their first thing is going to be, well, they get to go down there and play. But it's really more of the thought of, well, they can be unproductive in your room, or they can come to the reset room, do what they need to get a need met and be able to come back and be productive, is the way that we try to explain it. Is that what you were looking for? Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
So like I'm just starting to be trained in tier 2, and part of the tier 2 thing that I'm understanding, but like I said, I'm not like fully trained and I haven't really gone through it all yet, is that you need to have data to target tier 2. So this really isn't like a data-driven targeted selection of tier 2 needs. This is just more like kind of a in-between tier 1, tier 2 thing. It's not necessarily specifically targeted tier 2.
We do use data. We use our office discipline referral data. We use our minor information from SWIS for when these needs set in. And then we also do use an SEL screening tool as well to help with kids that might be outliers, that their behaviors aren't necessarily externalizing behaviors. We do use an SEL screener for that too.
So, but any teacher at any given time can send a student to this room. They don't have to be specifically qualified through that process then.
No, right. Yeah,
Okay.
You're right. No, that if a student is dysregulated and they aren't able to become back to ready to learn within that 6 to 10 minute window, then absolutely that space is for them to come and practice a coping skill, talk through it, and be able to get back to the classroom ready to learn.
Do you find some teachers are sending kids left and right and other ones don't?
That's a good Shanda question. Come here, Shanda.
We do have more teachers that are more open to using the reset room than others, but it's still new to them. There's a lot of teachers that, like we have a lot of new employees and new staff members this year. So they're just getting used to how the reset room works. But now that they know that it's here, we are getting them to use it more often. But overall, the teachers are accepting of it, and they call me immediately when they have an issue. If a kid is not able to walk down by themselves, then I will meet the child in the classroom and walk them down with me and then return them back to the teacher.
So you don't really find people are too much like, I'm so sick of you, just get out of here and go down to the reset room?
Not very often. I think we had that more the first year until they realized how much beneficial it was for the kid to come back to class ready to learn.
Mm-hmm.
How are you supporting, like, I think our counselors and our teachers, that initiative with doing something like that with calming spaces, I think that's something they do consistently well. They have bought into why you need to have that growth mind shift has definitely happened. With they understand that in order to regulate and de-escalate, you need to meet the basic needs of the student. I think what we struggle with the most is consistency with how do you then follow up with documentation. Like, that's why I put that question, like for data collection and tools for that. I like the reset room log. And then, so is that like hung up in a room? Do all teachers use it, just the counselor? And where is that document? Like, I guess I'm looking for info on how the practicality of teachers.
Yep, I got you a couple more things to show you. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
this log, no, you're good. So this log is just what Shanda uses, so that because she is a part of our tier 2, tier 3 behavior team. So
Gotcha.
she is the one that keeps track of these things. If I show you, so this is the documentation that is live on our Google Drive for the reset room, where we keep track of basically anything that's like a minor, and the information. So this is the first half of it. I want you to imagine the next slide is next to this slide to the left. Okay. So this is the kind of information that we then bring to our tier 2 to see if more needs are needed. I will tell you, this was from the very beginning of the school year. A lot of these are our kiddos who are already identified, because we do have students on the spectrum and with different learning disabilities that regularly do need more breaks.
So
but-
is this drive like accessible to all staff and they each are responsible for like implementing their own, like putting in that data?
No,
Okay.
no, this is just unscheduled breaks that are not part
Okay,
of,
sorry.
that are not part of the child's routine.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's really, I mean, the basics of all of it. I guess at this point, we're willing to just answer questions, whatever we can, whether that be questions you need from a school counselor standpoint, from a principal standpoint, from Shanda and our behavior support aid standpoint, like any kind of questions you have.
Thank you, first of all, for this. This is amazing, and it's really helping me a lot. You said that it was before Shanda came on board and was a full-time member and in the room full-time. You said you trained specialists to be the coaches. Can you talk about that when you were first starting off, what it looked like?
Yeah, sure. So I do have, it's just a check-in, check-out kind of manual and a little PowerPoint. I can't remember where I got a couple of video clips that show what a successful check-in, check-out looks like as examples. And then I just personally went to our PE teacher, our music teacher, our librarian, different teachers that I know first thing in the morning don't have students. So those people that are very, like in a high school or middle school, maybe someone like teachers that don't have a class first period, something like that. And ask them if they would be interested in doing something like that. Kind of try to play on the idea that, I know that you have a strength in building relationships with students, and this could be a really beneficial thing. So I don't know, I had about 12 different staff members trained at that point. It does get a little messy sometimes if they're going all these different places as far as meeting up with their coach and times and then getting back with their class at the end of the day to get out to the bus. I mean, but the one nice thing about that, that packet that we put together does have like each student's kind of plan, where they meet their coach, what time it's at, and all of that stuff. So that's helped.
And then is this being practiced at the secondary level?
So our middle school just hired a new principal this year, and our high school principal is Mr. Schaup's newer third year, I think. They are interested and did come over to the elementary at the beginning of the year to get a little bit of training and just kind of introduction of what is PBIS. I think right now they are approaching it from, well, those are our traits as well, because our district, expectations are the same as our traits. And I think that because that's a superintendent district push, they are looking at more ways to introduce those things at the middle school, high school, but having an actual team or anything like that, I don't know that we're to that point yet.
And then
They are open to it, I guess I'll say.
that's awesome. That's where it starts, right?
Yeah.
How is the behavior support specialist position financially supported? Like, where does the funds come from?
So right now, honestly, she was just one of our full-time paraprofessionals, and we were able to just move her into that position because there's not any.
Yeah, so,
Go ahead.
and Shanda, if you want to speak too. So Shanda used to be one of our one-on-one aides, and it's been so long ago now, that student moved off.
Yeah.
Moved to middle school. Yeah, she moved to middle school. And so basically we wanted to keep Shanda because we knew we had someone good in her. And instead of us reassigning her to like another one-on-one basis with a student, we were able to roll her into this position essentially. And it's kind of just grown from there, and she's taken advantage of it. And it's been our luck that it's worked out well. So,
And I think it's to the point now where Mike knows, and we all know, like, it doesn't feel optional. I don't think anyone would ever say, oh, well, if we need someone to cover this or that or the other, that they would say, well, what about Shanda? She's not doing it. Like, no one would ever say that, because it's a valued position, and it's necessary. And I think our staff has seen the benefit of it.
And that person is hired
Yeah.
through the ESC?
I'm sorry, what?
Is that person hired through the district?
Yeah, it was through our district.
luckily, you guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Luckily, it was one of those cases where when she kind of rolled off on that one-on-one aid into this, there was really no pushback from the then superintendent, and even now, obviously, that, hey, we needed to keep this a one-on-one because that's how her basically job was created. We were able just to extend it into this and then add other parts or moving parts if we needed other one-on-ones later down the road, if that makes sense. So we just we did get lucky, I'll be honest with that.
Yeah, I'm happy for you guys. What's the population K through 5?
We have about 472 students. We are we're Title I only, K through 3. We are like not even 20% free and reduced. Honestly, we have a pretty lucky.
Target assistance for title.
Yeah, we're targeted assistants for a title, so we definitely don't have some of the same struggles that other districts do when it comes to our population.
The 440 are at one school, or do you have one elementary building?
One elementary, yes. Yeah, there's 472.
So Shanda goes and gets the kids from the classroom, but she's one person. What if she's already working with somebody, or how often does she have more than one student in there?
I'll let Shanda answer that. I know that some of her scheduled breaks, it is a couple kids at a time, like especially if the needs are similar. It's not always one-on-one in there, but you want to tell them kind of what you do?
So when the teachers set up the proactive breaks, if they are kids that are in the same classroom and they have the same targeted goals that we're working on, like for instance, this year in one of the kindergarten classes, we have 2 boys that just need to work on manners and good choices versus bad choices. So they both come in at the same time and we work on the same things at the same time. Others, kids, like especially our kids that are on the spectrum, they have a harder time being in a room with more than one kid. So we try to not schedule them with another kid in the same classroom. If I am with a kid and I am needed for a child that is dysregulated, I send that child back to the room and meet the other kid in the classroom that the teacher has requested me. And I also have a sign on my door that if there is a kiddo down there for an unscheduled break, they know to look at my door. And if the door's shut, it tells them to return to class because I'm with another kid, especially if I cannot get to the phone and call the teacher to let them know that not to send the kid. I just have a thing, like a poster board hanging on my door that lets the kids know where I am at all times and if I'm with a child.
And you teach them those aspects.
And yes, so when they first come down, one of the first things that I showed them is, you need to pay attention to my door sign, and it will tell you each instance that, you can come in or you need to head back to class because I'm not here. So they know that they can't hang around and come in and, just kind of have an activity on their own, because we did have that happen one time last year, but they were caught. But we really try to work with the teachers and what the specific need is for that particular child.
Okay,
Can
thank
I
you.
ask all of you guys this? We have 3 elementary buildings and a much larger district. So Shonda and do you guys see this? What if there was a way to have it available, but not the same staff person every day? Do you see any barrier to that?
Like if that would be okay?
Yeah. I mean, like Shonda, you probably really get to know the students and the schedule, and
They do. Yeah,
have-
so I will tell you the one thing when we did that, so we did some of that PD and research from that I showed you at the beginning. One of the biggest things that drew our attention was that it said to be in this position like she's doing, you do not need any kind of formal training. The number one thing that you need to possess is empathy. And if you have empathy, even if you're not the same person always in there, you're going to be able to build those relationships. And maybe your relationship doesn't look the same as Shanda's does, but I think that if you have the people with the right personalities and the right core to them, that it would work.
So when I was at the PBIS convention a couple of years ago, I heard what I thought was a brilliant idea from a school, and I'm kind of maybe thinking this could be combined. So it started because their teachers were not doing any sort of incident reporting. And so what their PBIS team said is, if you do incident reporting, if there are 3 incidences, the same, one child gets the same type of incident report 3 times, somebody from this team will come and get that student and bring them to this room, which would be like this room, and reteach that particular thing, and then for 10 minutes, and then bring them back. And they didn't have a Shanda. So what they did is they asked for volunteers who had their free period. So every hour was covered, and they asked for people to volunteer 10 minutes a week, so that they had, or 15 minutes a week. So they had people in there every hour, volunteers once a week but it was all based on the PBIS expectations, and they had like a standard thing. So like if this kid the PBS team looked at the data every Wednesday, and they noticed that, Tammy had 3, not office referrals, but 3 incident reports of sticking her tongue, rudeness, sticking her tongue out. So then this team would go get Tammy, and then come back and teach her how to, be polite when she's frustrated or something. And then they would send her back. And then if that happened 3 times, then it would go up the scale. So it was not necessarily a reset room, but I'm thinking like a combination of that could happen. And what happened is their incident reporting just shot through the window, because teachers said, oh, if I do this incident report, somebody else is going to come in here and take this kid and deal with it. And then the PBIS aspect of reteaching as opposed to punishing became much more of an aspect. And then in the long run, everything just improved dramatically. So kind of to answer Debbie's question, could you see what you're doing kind of work if you didn't have the people resources, but you had enough people who would be willing to go in there once a week or do that?
I
and
think
then
so.
Combine it with incident reports. So it's not just, that kind of thing.
Yep. I think I could see that 100% working for sure.
Okay.
I think that's a brilliant mesh of the two.
because as I'm hearing you speak, I'm listening to them speak at the same time. I'm like, wow, that would be so powerful.
Yeah, it would. I think the biggest hurdle there would be like you would need your tier 2 and tier 3 team or whoever you wanted to do that to have those canned lessons kind of planned so that they were
Right.
available as soon as, as they got to those 3. But I think once you had those in place and planned out, I think that would be awesome.
Right. Yeah. That's where I think a lot of the work would come.
Yeah.
So do you have Shanda, do you have the things that you do with the kids directly tied to PBIS expectations, or is it more just self-regulation activities, or is there any direct connection in language, or?
It is both. It just depends on the particular student.
Right.
Like for the kiddos that, depending on like the manners and the good and bad choices, I find games on Teacher Pay Teacher that we use. Even the kiddos who need that refresher lesson going out to recess, sometimes we play a game and what their expectations are, or I just have note cards of scenarios. It just really depends on the individual student. Most of them, I do give them a chance to at least do an activity of their choice, so it's not a constant lesson in the class, in my room, in the reset room. But the kids are down there partially just, so that they can, hone in on their skills on what they need to be successful out in all the other areas of the school. But I do try to let them, usually it's about a 70-30. If we have a 10-minute break, we do the activity of my choice. And then for the last 3 minutes, they pick what they want to do. But if they've done like really great, usually on Fridays, they get the whole time to pick the activity of their choice, usually on Fridays.
Nice.
And
Now, were you
I
guys
would say,
doing- Go
sorry,
ahead.
I would say that, truly, they all connect back to our 3 expectations because with respectful, responsible, and resilient, I think you can almost always find a way to connect those back.
Right.
All of them do.
Yeah.
And did you do PAX, or did you do PAX in your building?
Pats?
Yeah, the PAX Good Behavior game? No.
No.
Okay. All right. For some reason, I thought you did. All right. Thank you very
No.
much.
Yeah. Right now, Paths, help me remember what Paths is. I can't remember.
PAX is a program where basically you train the adults to teach and interact with the students in such a way that the students learn to self-regulate instead of depend on the teacher to self-regulate.
Gotcha.
And it's very trauma informed. So like they do things like you blow a harmonica to get their attention, and that harmonica is a research sound. It's so researched to the point that the key of D is a sound that doesn't trigger or whatever.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
things like that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Does anyone else have any other questions or anything?
I did put 2 links in the chat to videos that are available. One is a short video that talks about Cumberland County version of the reset room. Some places call it a solution room. I know Bataan Primary out in Port Clinton, Kendra Van Dorn is the principal there. They have had they call it a solutions room, I believe. But this is a different district. And then Groveport Madison Schools presented at the PBIS showcase last year, maybe. And so this is their presentation. So it's about 50 minutes long. But in case you wanted to take a look at those, just to get different ideas. I know that the longer one, I'm pretty sure it's the longer one. They're a high school. And so it looks a little bit different. They take a certain chunk of time in the middle of the day, and the administration goes into the space they've designated as the reset room, which I believe also doubles as the cafeteria. And so they are available then to do these de-escalation techniques with the students, and they liked it because then it was a positive interaction with the students and not just the negative, discipline issues and that kind of thing. So those are two other resources. Any other questions for Sherry and Mike and Chandra, Chandra? Shanda, thank you. Sorry.
You got it.
Shanda, I hate it when I say people's names wrong. Just a quick reminder, as awesome as these ideas are, we want to make sure we have tier 1 firmly in place as much as possible before we move to tier 2. Van Buren Elementary worked on their tier 1 consistently for at least 2 years plus a planning year, if I'm remembering correctly. So
Yep.
the temptation is to jump right here, but we want to make sure that tier 1 is firmly in place first so that we are meeting the needs of 80% or more of our kiddos with what we're doing every day in the classroom, and then have these extra supports for those kiddos who need the extra time and support. So
Would you be open to visitors to this room? Like if we would like to come in and observe how Shanda does her work there?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Would you be open to visitors? Like if I would like to come in and just
Sure.
see how Shanda does this and how it all rolls?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I've already got several schools who I know will be very, very interested.
Yeah, for sure. Just send us an email. We'd be
Mhm.
happy to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
thank you so much, Sherry. I appreciate that. Anything else anybody would like to ask? Okay, as always, just like you guys, we like to collect data. The state asks us to collect data. And so if you wouldn't mind taking a minute to fill out this exit ticket, and then there's an evaluation for me, please, because this just gives us information about what's working and any other needs that you have. I am in, I hate to say negotiations, but it kind of feels like that, with Perrysburg District team to ask them to present at one of these. And we've set that date at March 15th. So if you want to pencil that in on your calendar, if you are interested. And then I'm also talking with, and I know they'll do it, it's just a question of when, sometime in May, Horizon Science Springfield, which is a K-8 charter building. We'll talk about their two system. And so that will be a May date. And as soon as I get that, I will make sure, take a look at our e-brief. If you go to our website, SSTR1.org, and look at our, you can sign up for our e-brief, which is our monthly newsletter about everything that's coming up. We also have this beautiful PD calendar and then PD booklet now that lists all of the different professional developments that we are offering. So that will be updated by January. So we'll have an updated version of that. And so you can either print it or just look at it online. And then our e-brief highlights the different information that we're presenting, different classes that we're doing throughout each month. So does everybody have the post-test link? The main thing is, how do you think you'll use this? And I know in your positions, it might just be information gathering to share with other people, but will this impact practices in any way? Then the other one is the evaluation. This is from the state, just saying, yes, we are doing PBIS presentations and such. So if you wouldn't mind using that QR code, you can take a picture with your phone, or I can put the link in the chat. And this is the information to fill out, and then you can answer the questions. And Sherry, I am thrilled to hear that your middle school and high school are finally expressing some interest. Hooray!
Mm-hmm. Baby
It's
steps,
taken a
right?
while. It's taken a
Yep.
while. So that tiny URL code is the one for the evaluation. That's
Got it.
easier to click on.
So you're probably in a situation like some of my schools where you work so hard at your PBIS framework, but yet you can't click the yes button for the district because the rest of the district isn't doing it. I've had a couple districts who some of the teams are just killing themselves by the end of the year so they can have tier 1 in place. And I'm like, you know what? The junior high is not making any effort. So let's just like give yourself a break here, and because you can't click yes anyways.
Tammy, what? Oh, never mind. I see the code right there. My bad.
That's okay. Yeah, it's simple once you understand it, but it feels complicated.
I just have so many screens opened up.
Yeah, I understand. So, and Sherry, you don't have to do the evaluation on yourself. That's okay.
Thanks. Okay.
Mike and Shanda, thank you so much for being here too. Appreciate it.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very nice.
Yep. If you guys have any questions, email us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for filling out the evaluation and the exit ticket. I appreciate it. And Debbie, I'll see you on Thursday for Swiss
I
training.
know, right? You're gonna see me a lot.
That's okay. I like that.
Oh, huh. I'm assuming, did you already create an account for me when you met with the BG high school team?
I did not, but it is on my list of things to do right here.
So
But
I
will
don't
have
need,
that.
I don't need to have one in advance, right?
Nope. No. So
Okay.
I'll create an account with a just a temporary password, and I'll sign you into all of the schools who have Swiss. And then when you sign in, it'll just all the different names of the schools will pop up, and then whatever account you want to access, you can just click on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Minimize
be on-
screen, go back and forth. Thank you so much for everything.
No problem. No problem. Good to see you again. Thanks
Great
for
to
coming.
see you. Take care.
See you Thursday. Bye.